team.
Hey there, this is Malorian, and this is the Orc Tactical Team, and today we're going to be talking about something a little bit controversial and something that's going to probably definitely ruffle some feathers, but what we're going to be talking about today is why the Wood Elves will beat you. And this, of course, kind of bugs a lot of people because they don't like being told that they will lose. I really thought I should do this topic because the last topic I talked about was about the Wood Elves and are the Wood Elves bad for the game. And as you'd expect, you'd see a lot of comments that would be on one side or the other, but you have the one subset that really says, if you lose the Wood Elves, you suck. There should be no way you should be allowing these Wood Elves run around you. Wood Elves are easy to beat. And unfortunately, I feel that the whole idea of avoidance might not be very well shown. And it's one of these things, too, where it's the saying, everybody has a plan till they get hit. And so what I thought I'd do is come at this from two different really sides. I have the side from my Orc and Goblin player hat. I have been playing my Orcs and Goblins for a long time. I have gone up against a lot of Wood Elves, and I know exactly what my plans have had to be to deal with the Wood Elves, and I can tell you how they have worked and how they have not worked. I can also go from the other side. Sure, I have not played Wood Elves for a while, but I played the hell out of them when they first came out with the other book and was destroying the meta with how I can run around. Plus, whenever I pull them out now and then, it's a very one-sided fight because, again, even though this is from the last book going to now, the idea and the whole tactics behind it is pretty simple. I am going to avoid. Now, let's really just define this first. I am not talking about all Wood Elves. I am talking about the style, what is, I am going to avoid you. My whole goal is I'm going to run circles, I am going to avoid combat, I'm going to win by 100 points, and that's it. If we never fight in close combat, I have met my goal. I have done everything I was supposed to do. Now, right off the bat, people look at this and they say that they're going to stop Wood Elves in one of three ways. One, they're going to do it through board control. I'm going to go from boardage to boardage, and I'm going to give you no way to get around you. Really, if you can get around you, it's because, you know, that person is a bad player. If you left a big, huge gap for them to run through, well, you're just a bad player. What were you doing? I mean, obviously, I'm going to go from boardage to boardage. I'm going to make a net, and I'm going to catch you, and I'm going to destroy you. You are weak. I can catch you, and when I touch you, you will die. That's the first way they think they're going to do it. Two, they say, go ahead, run around, do your circles. I have my own shooting. I'm just going to shoot you down. You know how weak you are? You are toughness 3. You have a 6+ armor, maybe at best, and you're just going to die in droves. So go ahead, avoid me as best you can. I am just going to shoot you, and I am just going to get those points. Way number 3, they say, again, pretty much like before, go ahead, run around. I have lots of magic missiles. All I have to do is hit you with magic missiles. Again, your toughness 3, you have almost no armor save. I'm just going to be wiping you out. You have low model count, and these fireballs will just be devastating to you. So let's take a look at those from both sides. First of all, Orcs and Goblins talking about board control. I'm an Orc and Goblin player. I go from board edge to board edge. My whole thing is to give no openings. I will move up, I will then cut across, and maybe have to let a few models get by, but I'm going to catch the vast majority of you and take all those points away. Now, let's switch over now and talk about the Wood Elves and why this won't work and why the Wood Elves will beat this. Well, it comes down to this. An orc is 25 millimeters wide. A horde of orcs is 250 millimeters wide. The actual span of this is then 0.8 feet. Now, I usually run 3 hordes of orcs, and they cover up a good chunk of the board. but how much of the board is it? Well, actually, we're going to go to extremes here to make the math easier. We are going to say Malorian, he is really going crazy. He is taking 5 hordes of orcs. That's crazy. I mean, who runs 5 hordes of orcs? That's going to cover the whole board. Actually, if you do the math, 0.8 times 5 is going to give you 4 feet of coverage. So out of the 6 feet, I'm covering 4. That's 2/3 of the board, meaning 1/3 of the board is not being covered. 2 feet of the board is not being covered. And I think that's a big thing that people just don't realize. They have it in their mind that, oh yeah, I'm a horde army. I'm going from board edge to board edge. I'm covering the whole thing. But in all honesty, they do not cover as much as they think they do. Again, with the wild extreme. I mean, seriously, people make fun of me of running 3 hordes. We're talking about 5 hordes here covering only 4 feet of the board and leaving 2 feet wide for this fast cav to rush on through. And really, how big of a gap that is. Well, keep in mind, we're talking about scouts, we're talking about, well, more skirmishers, we're talking about fast cav. Fast cav is not that wide. They are 25 millimeters wide, and all they need is 1 inch gap on either side. So basically, if you ever have a gap of 3 inches, they can rush right through there, and they are gone. They'll come over, they will do their as many reforms they want, and they'll go right behind you. And really, if they're within 18 inches of behind your board, that's it. They've gone through those 3-inch gap, and they are gone. So if you have a 2-foot gap, wow, that is so much to go through. Now, let's push this to the next side, or the next level, where, you know what, come on, Malorian, boards are not empty spaces. There is terrain to think about too. And that's very true. I can be using terrain to be helping me. Well, maybe there might be a building, and I'll say I'm going to be using that building to try and help me. So whereas normally I'm covering 4 feet, now I got that building in there too, which I can use to try and help and trap you. Let's say they're, well, you know what? That's really it. Because you know what? A lot of the other terrain doesn't actually stop the wood elves. If there is the most common type of terrain, woods, it doesn't do anything. If there are hills, it doesn't do anything. If there are rivers, you know what? It's going to force them to take dangerous terrain tests when they're going across. But it's going to more affect you because when you're big, huge hordes of infantry want to go across, they can't march. They're going to be taking dangerous terrain if they ever want to charge or flee. And yeah, if for whatever reason you give an opening where maybe, you know, that unit of 10 Glade Riders, they're just going to go for the flank of that horde of orcs. You know, you're not going to be steadfast. You're not going to have any rank bonus. And they're always strike first. And that fast cav unit might just break you and wipe you out. So you have to be very, very careful. So that terrain's not helping you. How about some of the other stuff? Fences won't really do anything. Some of the other stuff, like if you have some of the idols and stuff like that, don't really cover very much. Maybe even if it's a swamp. Swamps, maybe again, dangerous terrain when they're running through them, but that's really it. So terrain actually doesn't help you capture these wood elves as well as you think it will. The next part is too that the buildings, the part that's going to be helping you the most, something that's there that's impassable, also doesn't help you as much as you might think. Example 1, there is a building. My whole idea is I'm going to go up to this building and I'm going to be using it to widen my coverage of the board. The problem is that building is not moving with you. So once you get to that building, that's great. That's awesome. I am going to be very wide. However, I can now not move past that building without leaving the gap of where the building used to be. Or let's go to the other part. You have a line, you get up to the building, one side starts swinging around. Well, this does 2 things. 1, it projects to the Wood Elf player where your whole trap is going to be coming from. And 2, it lets them then decide which of these sides will I want to be going after to try and punch through? Because here's the next part of this whole idea. You are going from board edge to board edge, right? Let's live the dream and saying that you are actually doing this, even though we already proved that you probably won't be. That means that part of those units will not be within your leadership bubble. And that means those ones on the outer edges are going to be based off their own leadership. Now, let's say this part first. Wood Elves are very good at killing your fast cav and your weaker units. However, they can also take out your larger blocks if they're not supported. That block of 40 orcs on the side there, they're pretty damn tough. You will not be killing out that entire unit with shooting unless you really focus on it on the entire game. Now, the thing is, you don't need to actually wipe it out in order to actually bypass it. One, you can be shooting at that block to be making it have a panic test. All I need to do is kill 25%. I don't need to kill all 40, just 25%. And maybe the first round, the idea of killing 10 orcs, that's not really plausible. However, if I whittle on that unit, if I know that this unit is going to be key, because it's going to be one of the ones standing there while the other ones sweep around, I'm going to shoot at that unit. The next turn, I'm going to shoot at that unit again. And each turn, it gets more and more likely it's going to have to take a panic test. It's going to be at leadership 7. And all of a sudden, it's a coin toss whether not only am I losing all those points as it just runs off the board because it's right beside it, and that's the direction it's going to be running away, but 2, bam, I just made another big, huge gap in my hole, and all those Wood Elves are gone. So that's really bad. As well, the Wood Elves get these free force now, and they're going to be able to put them where they want and even pick what type of force they are. Well, guess what? If I know that this building is here on the side and you're going to be trying to close this gap here, well, on either that edge or the other edge here, and that's really also the smartest thing too, that I'm not going to be hiding in this corner, I'm going to be hiding in this corner, but let's look at worst case scenario. I'm going to be putting that wood on a flank. That's going to force one of those units to go through it that's outside of your leadership. It is going to be a fungus forest. Not only are you worried about taking panic tests from me trying to shoot them, well, you also have to deal with your stupidity tests, which could block up your entire lines. And this is where we come to the next part, the fracturing of the lines. As a Wood Elf player, I know that if you are coming at me and you have a really good net, I just need to fracture that line. Now, a really good way of doing this is a 50-point eagle. If I need to, I can throw up a unit of 5 fast cav or something like this, but what I'll do is I'll look at your full line, and I'll find 2 blocks that are side by side, and I'll put that eagle right between them. What that's going to do is that those 2 hordes, in order to try and deal with that eagle, will have to go after it. And they're going to have to go like this. They're going to crush that eagle. That eagle is dead. I have now gotten 50 points. What happens to the line? Well, whereas you had those 2 blocks before that were covering a lot of area, they have now clicked in to fight that eagle. Now, it's not like they just spring back to where they were, because you have to reform around your center. So whereas your centers before were like this, now they're like this. And you cannot reform back to being horde formation because you are side by side with that other unit. It just is not possible. Which means now there is a gap between that unit and now the outer unit. And how big does that have to be? 3 inches for me to be able to get through that. Now again, maybe that's not even the whole area, right? Maybe they'll have to stop, right? We'll kill the eagle. We know there's going to be gaps, so the other lines are going to have to come in to cover those gaps. 2 things. You've now lost a turn while instead of just marching up, I'm needing to cover gaps. And 2, when the line comes together to fill up, that gives gaps on the outsides. So more and more I can fracture this line to make gaps or give myself time to shoot more. Now, I think this is the next point where people don't really respect the amount of shooting that the Wood Elf army can actually put out. There's a real feeling in 8th edition that arrows are useless. Arrows cannot do any damage. They are laughable. And to be honest, if it's a small unit, it is pretty useless, right? If somebody takes 10 archers, the amount of damage they do is going to be almost nothing. You know, the best you're probably hoping from those 10 archers is maybe they'll take off a charm shield from a demon prince or something like that. The thing is that when you look at an avoidance army of wood elves, you are looking at a lot more shots than that. Now, let's say, for example, we are looking at my list, which is going to have 3 units of rangers. 30 shots right there. There's also going to be about 40 more glade riders. There's another 40. We're now looking at 70 shots. It's a lot of arrows. Now again, we're going to change this math just to make it a little bit simpler. Let's say the Wood Elves have 30 shots. Or sorry, 60 shots. So a little bit underneath that average of what I would have in my list there. Let's also say that they take, you know, the true flight arrows, because that makes the math easier again. And so they're going to take those 60 shots. They are going to hit 40 times, and they're going to be looking for the weaknesses. Now, where these weaknesses are going to be is that in my thought, where I'm going to be going to board edge, I might be trying to gum up that 2 feet gap with things like my fast cav and maybe little units of night goblins or something like this. Well, those little things are filling in those gaps, those weaknesses that you find in all armies, because again, we know that if you take an army of all just big blocks, you're going to be kind of controlled in the movement phase. So you're going to be having your own fast cav. Well, that fast cav is going to be normally toughness 3. Now, again, we said 60 shots. 40 are going to hit. 20 are going to wound. If we're talking about 20 night goblins, that's 20 dead night goblins. That unit is gone. Is it a bunker? That bunker is dead. Is it fast cav? Let's say I took units of wolf riders with shields. Okay, I got 4+ save. 10 are already dead. 2 units of fast cav are dead. And that's doing 2 things. On that first turn, you are opening up that gap in the line. You would hope that your 5 hordes, which again is going to extremes, covering 4 feet, so the other 2 feet is being filled in with this chaff to hope to hold it up. It is dead. It is dead that first turn. 2, your opponent is now winning. The Wood Elves are already winning. They have killed that fast cav. They have killed those small units, and they're already up to 100 points. They could not shoot any more arrows, run around, and they could have the win right there. So this is a very serious issue. And again, let's say that we are shooting into something tougher. That's toughness 4, has armor. You know, those things are going to be going down, but still, 40 shots is going to be causing a lot of wounds and causing a lot of armor saves. And what it really comes down to is you're looking at it as like turn 1, your fast cav is dead, right? If you have some little support units, they're dead, right? If not, the second turn, they're dead. After that, the Wood Elf player has about 4 turns to really pick one unit, whether it's a bunker with characters or one of your weaker blocks, and say, you know what, all my shooting is now going into there, and I'm going to score those points before the end of the game. And all I have to make sure is that I give up as little as possible. So let's start going to that now. Let's start talking about the way people think they're going to easily kill these Wood Elves. Well, for starters, they think they're going to kill them in combat. But we already talked about that first part there, and we didn't even talk about how the new Glade Riders are starting behind your lines. You know, you have this whole idea where I have this net, and I'm going to be catching everything, but in fact, a good chunk of your points could be going into Glade Riders, which will just start behind my net. But let's not even talk about that part, because we've been talking a lot about the movement, which is really the most critical part. Let's talk about the shooting. Now, a lot of people say, like I talked about earlier, that Wood Elves are easy to beat. I'm just going to shoot them, and they're going to die easy. Well, to be honest, that's kind of true. Wood Elves are toughness 3, they have next to no armor saves, and all the shooting you do is going to really, really hurt. However, There is some issues. The most critical of which being the range. Now, here's a very good example that comes from 40k, but really shows how this works in this Wood Elf situation. I am playing my 40k orcs against my brother's Warriors of Chaos. I am going to make up a list that is going to cover everything. I'm going to have my boys, big huge mobs of them to go fight in combat, and just in case there's going to be something around that's going to be flying around and avoiding me, say like Helldrakes, I'm going to be taking my Ludas, I'm going to be taking my Tank Busters, they're going to be ready with their big guns, and if you try running around, I'm going to shoot you down, job's a good'un. Here's the problem. This other stuff gets the Alpha Strike. The Helldrakes come in, their first target is my Ludas, is my Tank Busters, and they are now dead. And all of a sudden, what I thought was going to be my answer to this situation is not there. And when you have this skew where that situation is the whole situation, I'm now sitting in a spot where I have zero answers to what you had. So let's go to a usual army, right? Where you might have some archers, maybe, and you have some war machines. The first thing to talk about is that these war machines aren't always the best thing to use against Wood Elves. Sure, if you have something like a Doom Diver, those are fantastic. Doom Divers will find those Wood Elves and they will kill them. Kind of. You know, two Doom Divers, assuming they don't misfire, will hit and they'll each do D6 hits, which means 7 hits, which means I'll be killing on a 2+, 6 or 5 guys. So, if it's a unit of Rangers, I'll kill half the unit. They'll pass their leadership 9. I'll get 0 points. Okay. If it's a Rock Lava, assuming, again, it doesn't scatter, it doesn't misfire, I hit right on, skirmishers, I'm not hitting very many. And then most of that's wounding on a 4+, so I'm not killing very many. If I even cause a panic test, their leadership 8 or 9, and I'm probably not going to do anything. Really bad news. If it even is fast cab, then okay, they're a little bit more bunched together. However, remember, you're not getting the alpha against those Glade Riders. The Glade Riders are coming in on ambush, and they'll get the first round of shooting. And this really comes down to the Alpha Strike. And people don't understand the Alpha Strike of the Wood Elves. They are on a very fast army which can range out to 30 inches with their longbows. Meaning, normally, you don't see these Wood Elves deploying on the front edge of the deployment. They are going to be either off in ambush or at the back of the board, or wherever they need to be to outrange you, right? If you don't have good range, they might even be closer, right? Oh, I'm up against regular handgunners. Oh, well, okay, that means they have a 24-inch range, and all I need to be is deploy 25 inches away, and I'm guaranteed to get the Alpha Strike. If you are Dark Elves with your repeater crossbows, well, I know that you have a range of 24. I know that you can move up 5 inches, which means I have to be 29 inches back. If you're an organ gun, I know you can shoot 30 inches. I shoot 30 inches. So I'm just going to go back out to 31, knowing you can't move and shoot, and then I'm going to move up and I'm going to shoot you. And that's the big thing that I think a lot of people just don't understand. You might have this plan about how your archers or your war machines are going to shoot these guys, and they're going to do damage right away, but for the most part, you either don't get it, or let's say you do get it. Let's say that you are the Doom Diver, which hide as far as you want, my Doom Diver is going to find you. Well, I got 2 of them, and like I said, on averages, you're looking at killing 5 or 6 models. On the Wood Elves' turn, they're going up. They have those 60 shots, they're going to be hitting with 40 of them, and all you need is those 3 6s per war machine to destroy it. Hell, if it's one of the repeater bolt throwers, you just need to get 2 wounds. That's so easy. And the thing is that you can't protect these things. You can't. Oh, you put your war machines behind your lines so there's hard cover. Oh, you have that special rune on it because you're a dwarf, so you're automatically going to be getting hard cover. They don't give a damn. True Flight's going to be hitting on a 3+, and they're just going to be hitting those War Machines no matter what protection you put on them. And then all they need is 6s, and you're destroyed. And again, maybe the math is a little bit off on the first turn because all the Glade Riders are off the board. Well, okay, all you have is your 30 Rangers, which will be getting 20 shots, and then, 30 shots, 20 hits, and from those 20 hits, they're probably destroying one War Machine that very first turn. Then all the Glade Riders are coming on the next turn, and they're going to kill off another 2 War Machines or whatever you have left. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, I don't have anything to threaten you with anymore. My shooting, which I thought I was going to be able to depend on, my shooting that was going to take you down is gone. And first of all, maybe you're screwed over because you thought, I'm just going to castle. I'm just going to castle. I'm going to go down here, and I'm just going to hide my good stuff and shoot you, and I'm going to win you, beat you at your own game. I'm going to kill 100 points of your stuff, and that's going to be that. I'm going to get the win that way. All of a sudden, you're castling up with no War Machines, and that whole game we talked about, the movement phase, you are in no position to be capturing anything in the movement phase, and it's really game over. Or let's say you were spaced out, and part of your spaced out part was going to be having some of those ranged units. Well, they're going to be targeting those first. They're going to be the weaker models, and once they kill them, A, you have no way of shooting back, and B, there's a gap in your lines. So again, this Alpha Strike, it's almost like a gotcha for people who have not faced it, who have not realized what 60 arrows can do. They just don't realize how everything that they thought is going to be their tool is gone. And what their tool is now is those 100 points to the opponent to give the Wood Elves the win. So that's really bad. Let's talk about way number 3. People normally think they're going to be Wood Elves, and that's with magic. And they say, you know what? I got tons of magic missiles. I'm just going to shoot these guys down with the magic missiles, and this is going to be easy. Yeah, I can tell you as a Wood Elf player, when you're rolling up your magic, I am looking for one thing: magic missiles. Can you hurt me at range? That's all I care about. You know, if you get off something else like dwellers, you know, like go ahead, have your dwellers. That's no big deal. You know, if you have flesh to stone, I just don't care. All I care about is if you have any magic missiles. Now, first of all, there are some lores that don't have magic missiles. Or if they do, it's like 1 per lore. So who knows? You might not even roll it. But we're going to assume you do because, you know, on level 4, you might have doubles. You can just pick it. Here's the thing. 1 spell. That's all the Wood Elves are talking about and all they care about. So when I get my dice are going to be thrown out at that 1 spell. Again, you can be casting Regrowth. That's okay. I'll shoot down my points from somewhere else, or I'll just keep on shooting them later. When it comes to the Fireball, or whatever it be, that's what I'm going to be throwing all my dice at. That's where I'll be throwing my scroll at if it's something really powerful. And, you know, the whole time I'm just kind of thinking, hey, if you want to 6 dice this spell, you're going to start miscasting. And if you start doing explosions, you might kill your mage and give me those points. You might blast up the unit and all of a sudden decide like, huh, that mage and that unit just got a lot smaller. Pew, 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 pew. I'm going to start destroying that thing now. And let's talk about a couple of things first. 1, magic is not dependable. If you're going into a game saying, I'm going to defeat my opponent with magic, that's never a good strategy because you never know how many power dice you have. But let's say it's even an average number of dice. Your opponent, the Wood Elves, are still going to have a good number of dice, which is probably going to force you, if you realize the situation, to be 6 dicing this thing and trying to get it off. Well, on the turn that's important, they could always just try and scroll it. Again, we already talked about you might be miscasting, which is good because you got the spell off, but bad because something clearly is going to be happening to your mages. Now, here's the next part. Magic missiles are not all created equal. If you're something like Soul Blight or something like that, that's awesome, right? 4d6 hits. I'm going to be doing awesome. It's also very short range, so you probably can't even get that one off the first turn. A lot of that other magic missiles, again, we talked about the Doom Divers. 2d6 hits, that's 7. Well, a lot of these magic missiles are strength 4. If you're doing that, you're now killing around 4 models. That's really it. And 4 models are getting you 0 points. And that's your magic phase, right? Like, 6 dice this, 2d6 hits. I kill 4 models and got nothing? So it really does not do as much as you think. And again, you might say like, oh, well, clearly, if I'm going to go up against Wood Elves, I'm going to be taking like, 4 level 1s, all with the Lore of Fire. The problem is that you don't do that, right? Look at your regular tournament list. You don't have these things in there. And this really applies to the shooting as well, right? People might say like, oh, I could just take a unit or an army that's all shooting. But you don't do that. When you go into a game, you have to really look at what your standard tournament list is, and normally there is not that much shooting. Normally, there is not that much magic missiles, and so it's not really valid to use them as a defense against Wood Elves because they're not going to be there. Here's the other problem with magic. Waystalkers. We now have a Wood Elves that can be picking out your casters. And to be fair, it's not like first turn, your casters be dead. But, first turn, if you're in range to do your spells, and again, they can be deploying at the very back of the board. So, you can go up and let's say you got 2 feet is what a lot of the times the range your spell is. That will take you up to their deployment. A lot of time your movement is 8, so I can move up my 8. Which means they have 4 inches of safety on the first turn. So normally, first turn, you can get off no magic missiles. Okay, turn 2, they use their scroll on your one thing, if they didn't have to stop it with regular dice. All these turns, their Waystalkers have been able to been trying to shoot at that caster, right? So that's bad. As well, some of the things you can catch people where, again, it's a gotcha, is they're like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be putting my caster back in my bunker, right? That's what I always do. The caster's back in the bunker. Remember, 60 shots, 40 hits, 20 dead, toughness 3 guys, or at least you're taking your armor saves. And that's normally what your bunker is, right? So you can get a huge gotcha where if they put all their stuff back there in the bunker, bam, you're taking this thing out and you're killing casters. So if they know what they're doing, they're going to be putting their casters in their big, huge blocks. But again, you have to worry about those Waystalkers, plink, 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 slowly killing them over the game. And even if they don't kill them to turn 4, to turn 5, if in response, they're only killing about 4 models per turn, they are not going to be getting their worth. And again, nothing on the first turn, scroll on the first turn, and let's give 2 more turns to you. So you are killing about 8 models with your magic missiles. And again, it's just one of these things that it's in your mind that I'm going to be able to do this. And it's not till the rubber hits the road that you realize it's not true. So I really hope you guys understand where I'm coming from this. I am both a Wood Elf player and a player who has had to face against Wood Elves. And I understand that I need to try and cover all these gaps. I understand that I need to be using my shooters to the greatest of my ability. If I have any magic missile, I need to 6 dice that thing every single time for me to get anything out of it. And just the whole idea that this is not something where, oh, I'm facing a Wood Elf avoidance army, this is easy. You have to realize that if you know exactly what you are doing, the odds are probably still stacked against you, assuming that they're a person that has designed their army to be really working to that avoidance, and they're also, not going to just run into your kind of traps and deploy correctly and do everything else. So, again, I am sure that once I post this, I'm going to be getting lots of hate and people saying, oh, Malorian, this is stupid. Of course I can beat Wood Elves. You're supposed to be a good tactician, but please, go ahead, have all the theories you want, but you gotta actually use them. You have to actually see that when you're on the board, you're only covering 4 feet, your shooting is going to be taking a big hit before it even gets to shoot, and that your magic is not going to be doing as much as you might hope it will. So there you go. That's why Wood Elves will beat you, and thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye.